about what I've learned from my district. And when you're a representative, you represent like 70,000 people, so you didn't know them all when you got elected. And my district goes from 5 Points to 1010 Road. And it includes all of downtown Raleigh. Let's hear a shout out for downtown Raleigh. But it also includes part of Southeast Raleigh and part of Garner. And I learned a lot about Garner. When I got elected, I'm from a small town, and Garner's kind of like the small town that I grew up in. Garner, 4 Miss North Carolinas have come from Garner. And Garner has an awesome high school football team, but it also has this really great sense of community. It's one of the most socioeconomically and racially diverse towns in Wake County. And it's people just pitch in and they help each other. The Civitan Club, the Kiwanis Club, they're all willing to do something good for somebody else. They even had a white deer in Garner that met an untimely demise. And now they have this amazing park that they did just for the white deer. And so Garner just really warms my heart, and the folks in Garner are terrific. And if you haven't been to Garner, go. So I represent Southeast Raleigh as well. And when I think of Southeast Raleigh, I think of faith, I think of education, and I think of activism. And I have a background in civil rights work. I did a lot of that before I got elected. But I had never been to a 4-hour church service until I started representing Southeast Raleigh. And it was great. I've also been to 1-hour church services. But Southeast Raleigh is really marked for me by Shaw University and St. Aug's. And it's what brought a lot of great people to Raleigh back when black people were basically not allowed to go to any public schools. St. Aug's and Shaw started from high school and went through medical school. And they brought amazing people here, and a lot of them have made tremendous contributions. Southeast Raleigh also was where the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee got started. And it's a center of activism and protest and doing just the right thing to help people and working for justice. Like I said before, I've had a civil rights background, but I didn't understand struggling for justice until I represented Southeast Raleigh. And let me tell you, the struggle continues. Now, I also represent Hayes-Barton, Old Raleigh, and a lot of money. And I've met some wonderful people who really care about the community, and you're going to hear about one of them a little bit later on in the presentation. But downtown Raleigh doesn't just include cool, fun people who we like to hang out with. There's a lot of poverty. There's prostitution. There are people. This is the Boylan Heights Bridge, and I live in Boylan Heights. And so I have to think about Hayes-Barton and also think about what we can do about our homeless population, doing what I do. I represent some cool downtown neighborhoods: Oakwood, Mordecai, Boylan Heights, my kind of funky, quirky neighborhood, the Kirby-Billieu neighborhood, for those of you who have been to Kirby Derby Day. I've been to most of them. And that's a lot of fun, and it's where a lot of the energy and vibrancy and creativity comes from. And I get a lot of energy from my constituents who I see when I'm walking Ralph all the time. Now, I represent a lot of colleges and universities with a lot of creative ideas. NC State, Old Shaw, I represent Peace College, go almost down to Wake Tech, and I also have Campbell Law School. We're hoping those law students frequent some of our local establishments. There's a ton of bars and restaurants. There weren't those bars and restaurants, let me tell you, when I moved here 20 years ago. We've got fun, wonderful things to do, but we've also got the symphony, and we've got the arts and culture. So let me tell you about the arts and what the great ideas that some of my constituents have given me that had to do with the arts. So I've sponsored legislation to have more transportation options, more transit, buses, light rail, things like that. But the people who told me that they cared about this first were the little old ladies at the senior center in Garner who wanted to take the bus to get to Memorial Auditorium to see the shows. And that taught me to think about transit as more than just my big city, I've been to Washington, D.C. and lived all these different places. If it meant something to them, it should mean something to everybody else, and I got rural folks involved too. Now this is my Hayes-Barton guy idea. One of our former mayors told me, Deborah, you should start getting some money to build Green Square, which is right down across from the legislature. It's an add-on to the Museum of Natural Sciences. It's going to have a new building for our Department of Environment and Natural Resources. It's going to have all this research stuff. It's going to have science education. It's going to have a big weather daily planet thing where Greg Fischel's going to go and tell you about the weather. And it has brought more construction jobs to downtown Raleigh than any other project in the last couple of years. And I'm really glad that our former mayor, my constituent, told me to get involved, and we got more than $200 million to build this great project that's here in downtown Raleigh. So another great idea that came from my district came from a community activist in Southeast Raleigh, and she said, you know, why do we have to register to vote 25 days before the election? We should be able to register to vote and vote on the same day of the election. Some people don't know that they have to be registered in advance. It's not really fair. It keeps people from voting. So right now, you can register to vote and vote on the same day up until 3 days before the election at early voting sites. And it doesn't just... So if you're not registered, you have a plan B. And this it's mainly benefited students and people who've moved. 100,000 North Carolinians use this. So, last great idea came from a state employee. She worked for the archives and preservation section of the state, and she had to look outside at the buildings on Blunt Street, kind of having peeling paint and nasty stuff. And she came up with the idea that the state would sell this land to somebody who would make the Blunt Street area bright and vibrant and sell the houses to people who actually cared about it. And we did it. And you can see across from the Krispy Kreme, no more motor fleet. We actually have condos and places for people to live. So I've learned a lot from my district. It's come from unlikely places and it's benefited a lot of people. Thank you.